I got a theory. I think Stu was in Scream 5. After watching it literally 5 times, I noticed a couple things that I didn't notice the time before. And the biggest thing I noticed is that when Sam and Richie go visit Dewey, uh, Dewey accuses Richie of being the killer, but Richie defends himself by saying, "Well, I was with Sam in Modesto when Tara was attacked." And then Sam is like looking at him and gives him like an affirming nod.
Never trust the love interest. They seem sweet and caring and supportive. And welcome to Act 3 where they're trying to rip your head off.
I was with Sam in Modesto when Tara was attacked.
Let me guess, you were just in the other room, conveniently unaccounted for when she was attacked at the hospital.
Okay.
So if Richie was with Sam in Modesto for the opening scene of the movie, then he couldn't have obviously been there at Tara's house because Modesto is not near Woodsboro. So you could make an argument, well, maybe he like left and then came back or something like that. But I think Sam would have mentioned like a gap of time like that he was gone to raise suspicion. So and as you saw, she gave an affirming nod. So as far as we know, Richie's in Modesto. He's not near Tara's house, not in Woodsboro during that opening scene, which, being the reveal that the killers were Amber and Richie, then that left all that work to be done by Amber, but that's literally impossible. There had to have been someone else there. But the question is, who? And I believe it was Stu. I mean, it could have been maybe, like, you could make a case for Chad, because he had that bruise on his shoulder where he got kicked by Tara, and he said it was by football practice. So you could make an argument maybe it was Chad, but I think it's Stu because I'm pretty sure they're gonna bring back Stu, whether it be in Scream 6, and I think if Scream 6 is successful, they're gonna make a trilogy. So maybe Scream 7. I don't know. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get Stu back. Matthew Lillard has repeatedly made his statement that he would love to be back. So it's only a matter of I feel like time, like which movie, 6 or 7, when he's gonna come back. But back to the opening scene, that left all that work to be done by Amber, like I said. So that's impossible. She would have had to make the phone call. She would have had to make that video because we see Amber in the video that the killer is showing to Tara on Tara's phone. We see the video, like he's saying, "Oh, Amber is looking particularly fetching tonight." So if that was like a pre-recorded video, then Amber obviously could have been in on it more. But if it wasn't, and she was literally that was like live, they needed like 2 people. Then they needed someone to be recording Amber, and then somebody at Tara's front door. So then you would need 3 people then altogether. Amber, you would need Richie then, and then the third, which I believe would be Stu. But that's impossible if Richie was indeed in Modesto, which I think we can assume is true because Sam didn't question it and she gave him a nod. So I'm assuming that Richie was not involved here. I mean, maybe he made a phone call. That's possible. He could have gotten away from Sam for like a few minutes and made those calls. And I did notice also that there's 2 phone calls. So there's the first phone call where Tara hangs up, and then it's about to call 911, but then it's gets texted by the clone phone of Amber, and then another phone call goes. So maybe the first one was Richie, possibly. I don't know. But the problem with the video being pre-recorded is that the killer holds up the knife when Tara gets the third question wrong. And it's like perfectly timed, and he's like, "I'm afraid someone has to die." So I mean, he could have timed that right, but I don't think he would have been able to know how long Tara would take to respond, that to make that perfectly timed, unless that was just it's a movie, so maybe they just had to make that work. That's, again, maybe I'm looking into this too deep, or maybe it's a plot hole. Yeah, I don't know, but here's the clip of him holding the knife.
The correct answer is Billy Loomis and Stu Macher. There are 2 killers in the original stab. I'm afraid someone's gotta die now.
Oh, Amber, I'm coming.
So with him holding up that knife perfectly timed, it makes me believe that it wasn't pre-recorded. That was like live. So then, if that is the case, Amber is clearly seen there, not doing anything. Then there's a person holding the phone, holding up the knife. So then someone had to have been waiting at her front door. So something's wrong here. Either Richie, it was not in Modesto, and Richie was holding up that phone, and then Stu was doing all the work, waiting at Tara's house, or Stu was on the phone and then holding up the phone to Amber, and then Richie was doing all that work. But I've noticed a lot of people said the same thing, that the killer had a noticeably larger stature. Like when you saw the killer in the trailer, you were like, man, that's a bigger dude. Like you could tell it was a tall, guy. So, and I saw we watched a movie, the YouTube channel. Mike said the same thing. He was saying that he thought it was Stu under the costume. And again, you gotta be careful because they use stuntmen to wear the ghost face mask and robe. So it's not always going to be accurate, so you got to be careful looking at those little details. But this killer was noticeably larger. And even in the hospital scene, there was something about that scene and all these scenes where the killer was so aggressive, he was angry, and even his voice. Obviously, Roger L. Jackson got older, so his voice would be more deeper and, changing. But he was I think the majority can agree that the Ghostface Killer's voice was more menacing in this movie than the previous ones. He was angry. You could tell that there was pent up anger, and these details the directors add intentionally. They're directing. They tell the actors to do certain things. Every gesture, every tone, it all matters. You really got to pay attention, especially in a Scream movie, because they were honoring Wes Craven with this movie, and Wes Craven made the brilliant action of making Billy and Stu hold their knives different, the stuntmen that played them, while Billy was all about the stabbing. He liked to raise it up, like Sam did at the end, raise it above his head with one hand on the hilt, while Stu liked to clasp the handle with both hands, lift it up above his head, and then he was more about slice. So there's also a brilliant video on that too, like who was who in the original Scream. So every detail matters. Everything is important. I'm still figuring this out myself. I don't know if I'm looking at it too hard, but if indeed Richie was in Modesto with Sam during this opening, there had to have been a third killer, and maybe and who else is it going to be? It's got to be Stu, because even the question that they asked Tara to trip her up is who was the killer and stab, and everyone forgets about poor Stu. So it would make sense for Stu to be angry about that. It's like, I was the muscle. Yeah, Billy was the brains, but I was the muscle. So it would make sense for him to ask that question. Maybe Stu was on the phone. Maybe he wasn't doing the killing. But it's all up to interpretation for now until we get Scream 6 and possibly Scream 7. But I'm pretty certain that Stu is going to make a return, and I do believe that we did see Stu in Scream 5. He was somewhere in the shadows.